We'll continue on page 60. We've discussed the 12 steps, the plan of action for the program for the man in recovery. And we learned some essential things about what is our solution. Let's look what Bill Wilson says about what we've covered so far. How can we summarize these 12 steps? Well, he does it right here in the middle of page 60. He says our description of the porn addict, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. Number one, that we were porn addicts and could not manage our own lives. Number two, that probably no human power could have ever relieved us of our porn addiction. And number three, that God could and would if he were sought. Wow, all 12 steps in one, 2, and 3 statements. Here we are, step 3. Step 3 says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to God. It describes, he gives us more insight here by saying, being convinced that we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. We've discussed this before, my friends. Self-will, this battle between self-will and God's will. Let's learn some more. On that basis, we're almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Listen to this great analogy Bill gives to us about this collision we have between our self-will and someone else's self-will. See, the only problem with self-will is that everybody else has self-will. If everybody else didn't have self-will and just David C. had self-will, I think everything would be great, fine and dandy. But that isn't how it works. Bill Wilson helps us understand with this story. He says that each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If only his arrangements would stay put. If only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest, but as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. So what usually happens? Middle of 61, the show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think that life doesn't treat him right. So what does he do? He decides to exert himself more. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that the other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if only he manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these things are the things that he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can to get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? Now, Bill Wilson has taught us a lot about this story and how true it is. How many of us feel like we're on the stage of life? How many of us are encountering other people that interfere with our little plans and our little wishes? The only thing that's stopping us between our reaching those as other people. We're always in a constant collision with others, we learn. That are sometimes, though, we know the game, we're here to manipulate. We want people to do what we want them to do. So we act nice to them. Really, in life, there's basically only two things that we can do. Either we can be a giver or we can be a taker. Now, which of the two are better? I bet you would say being a giver is much better than being a taker. And you know what? You're right. But taker is bad, but there's actually something that's worse than a taker. You know what that is? Giving to take. Yeah, giving to take. How many of us are trying to get somebody to do what we want them to do by being nice to them, by buying them gifts, by taking them out to dinner, treating them to some candy? We have a child that's like crazy, insane, acting out in their own way. And what do? We give them a piece of candy. We're not giving them. We're giving them to take. We just want them to shut up. How many times have we done that with our spouse? How many times have we done that with our parents? How many times have we done that with the boss? You know what I am in those situations? I'm just a manager. I'm managing other people. Here, the irony is that I can't even manage my own damn life. And I'm going to manage someone else's life? They're not going to let me. They're too busy managing their life. And all I do is get them further upset. That's why it says here that is he not a victim of the delusion? And boy, a delusion it is, that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if only he manages well. Why don't people do what I want them to do? Don't they realize how much better life would be? That's what Bill Wilson is trying to get across to us in this section. That's why it's so important that we learn how to do step 1 through 12.